I am here in Bellingham, Washington, and I'm here to visit Pam Bosch, who is the owner, founder, and designer of the Highland Hemp House. She's very kindly let me stay here for many days, and I'm loving it. My first visit, spending the night in a hemp home. So, Pam, when did you first become interested in industrial hemp? I mean, what led you in this direction?
All right, well, hello, Lillian, and welcome to the Highland Hemp House. I first started thinking about hemp building when I was looking for non-toxic insulation to renovate my 1969 mid-century modern home that was in need of some caretaking. And I discovered that the fiber bat insulation was not available on the market at that time. So as I kept researching, the word Hempcrete came up, and I delved into that, and I haven't looked back since then.
Well, you've done it. And as I mentioned this morning, with all the wind and the rain outside, I have felt so safe and comfortable, and it's just lovely to touch.
It does have a visceral quality that is hard to describe without actually being in the room.
We've been very generous in letting me stay so long, too. Can you elaborate on your multidimensional vision when you started designing and researching on your home? And do you want to walk around and show us as we...
Sure. Well, I can back up a little bit and say that my interest in hemp in general probably has deep roots in my upbringing, where my father was very much opposed to chemical farming and worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But more, he was from generations of farmers, as many Americans were, and the use of chemicals to kill insects and fertilizers to make plants grow was not a natural system. And so, he could see this in the 50s, and what we know today, how do we back ourselves out of this problem? And the same thing is true of our building industry. We've adapted many materials and methods for expediency and economic reasons that aren't necessarily consistent with our quality of life or our well-being. So that's where we are today in many of our systems.
Well, when you began your research, which was back in 2015, 2014?
14.
Yeah, did you just go online and start Googling, healthy materials for construction? Because at that time you owned the house and you were living in it.
Yes.
And so what is it that you saw that led you towards Hempcrete?
So as I say, I was looking for insulation. And I thought the Canadians were growing hemp for seed for 20 years. And I knew that in the UK, I found this bat insulation made out of the hemp fibers. And so I thought maybe I could get some of that. But as I kept Googling, Steve Allen's name came up. Mm-hmm. And so he had a book written at that time, and I emailed him from an address, and I learned that he was doing a workshop in Colorado. A few other people was to build forms, take the stalk of the hemp plant, mix it with lime, and pack it into those forms around a structure, usually a stick frame, but meaning 2x4 studs, or a timber frame, which is where the hemp would be just kind of infill. We had a workshop of about 15 or 20 people, and I thought, this is great.
It's nice to do the hands-on, because that's what I did too.
Yeah, and it's natural materials. It makes so much
simple.
sense.
It's so simple. It's
and an educational process started where you learn all the good properties, that it allows the moisture to pass through, that using lime instead of cement takes a lot less energy, and you're not mining aggregate like in concrete. You have gravel and stone, and just everything, the way that hemp connects to fibers, connects to clean agriculture, connects to using less water, connects to protein that's good for animal food, and it's good for human food. It's more digestible than soybeans. And so, you know, when you realize that one plant can do all of these things,
it's amazing.
yeah, why aren't we taking advantage of this?
Why did they ever stop growing it and using it here in the U.S.?
That's a good question. And
Yeah,
it's,
why
you
do
know,
you
it has
think?
multiple answers. Obviously, we have a lot of top-down structures, and so decisions are made according to, for economic reasons. And so whoever has the control to influence how money is made, I mean, if they have a self-interest in that, then they're going to make the rules to feed their own coffers. And we all know the world we live in today, that's a huge problem. As the COP26 is concluding in Scotland, and we're hearing those messages, it's actually destroying us. So hemp is kind of a poster child of what happens when narrow self-interest decides, in this case, what crops can be grown.
So how do you think that hemp can not only benefit our health through the consumption of the hemp parts, through building with healthy material of hemp and lime, and I know that growing it mitigates a lot of the toxins or the metals that are in the soil, so it repopulates the good bacteria and also sequesters a lot of carbon into the ground.
Hemp, the potentials, as it grows, it cleans the soil because it's very fast growing. And so big, tall, fast-growing plants suck the nutrients, and it's able to suck heavy metals along with it. This is my understanding. I'm not an agronomist, but these stories have come out over and over again that it can clean the soil. But in telling that story, I think one of the big obstacles is that, why is our soil so dirty? Why is it being depleted? Well, maybe, you know, how did those heavy metals get in the soil?
In the first place, yeah.
And not only the heavy metals, but, you know, when you have fertilizers that are a balance of basically 3 ingredients, where are all the other things that are produced by microorganisms and healthy soil? What's the difference between healthy living soil and soil that has added nutrients to make the plants grow? And so it's a bigger story that when you confront the whole story, you are kind of stepping on the toes of people who are heavily invested in agribusiness and the whole economic system. So first of all, we have to value telling the truth about how we come out of this. And then another thing is really look at our system that continues to make hemp prohibitive to grow. So we're still treating it like it's the problem, it's a drug. And we're making farmers prove that they're not criminals.
Right.
So they have to test their fields, and they have to pay huge, they have to pay fees to grow hemp that aren't present if you're growing corn or wheat. Or so it's a wicked problem. It has, we're living with the consequences of a bunch of decisions that have been made for economic benefit of the few. And we can say that about
like
climate change,
oil
we can
and
say
gas.
that about inequity, we can say that about really the problems that we're facing today, which is why hemp is such a poster child for change, because it takes that wicked problem and go, here's a plant that deals with water shortages, that deals with cleaning up the soils, that deals with a better building material. So this house, even though I had to import my hemp, and I haven't calculated my actual carbon footprint, but as a potential, if I could have bought hemp that was grown nearby, I have 40 solar panels on the roof.
So you are totally off grid in a way. I mean, you provide your own energy completely.
Yes, I'm not off grid. I'm connected to the
You're
power
connected
grid.
to the grid.
But long-term goals are that we have microgrid. We have homes that do have a south orientation, so we can put solar panels on the roof, and we can generate all the energy, have efficient systems, Hempcrete walls that hold the heat and also insulate from the cold, that moderate the humidity so that you can have a tight envelope without having a buildup of moisture inside. The very old building materials really solve a lot of the problems of building with plastics and materials that incorporate formaldehyde and volatile organic compounds and so on. With one very simple
Plant
building material, you can solve a number of problems. That's what gives us hope. We can change when we can see the possibilities.
And it's very sad that people, or maybe they are now, connecting their health problems, many of them, from their toxic environmental living spaces. Do you know? And I've heard this mentioned over and over again, that people, when they realize they're living in a plastic home and not a healthy breathing home, that maybe it's a wake-up call. Maybe it's and it's, so petroleum oriented. In so many ways, especially right now.
Well, I think we should be beyond woke,
Yeah.
I walk outside and obviously we're breathing fumes from cars. Yeah, and most homes, natural gas is supposed to be efficient, but it's toxic. We have vinyl and Tyvek and, all kinds of things that are used to make buildings cheap. And why highly processed materials are cheaper than minimally processed materials, we should be asking ourselves that. But of course, look at all the lawsuits for, Monsanto, for corporations that make things that they can sell without regard for what are the long-term effects, where are the toxins, where are the poisons going.
Well, show us your beautiful home, and we can talk further about the details of your creating and designing your healthy home that, it has brought you great pleasure, and a lot of other people who have seen your videos and seen your writings and your articles.
I'd like to show that I'm not a builder, I'm not an architect. I do have some aesthetic training.
You're an artist.
Yeah.
So you have the artistic eye.
Right, and it was also my home. I live in the space. I know how I want to move in the space and what I want to live with. And so,
I love the colors. That's what I said when I first arrived. How beautiful and warm, and just to touch the walls. Some of them feel like sort of a satin or a suede.
And that
is
something that I want to demonstrate. That plaster, lime as a building material, is wonderful. In a sense, it's a reconstituted stone. It's reconstituted limestone. So I mentioned earlier that I had once lived in a sandstone building and it had a certain feel. Stone is, a secure, solid kind of feel, and lime is like the shell is made from decomposed shells of oysters and clams and, bones, the interior structure or the exterior structure. So it makes sense that these materials have a kind of a feeling of security.
Living in a clamshell, you said the
Yeah.
other day. When was this house originally built?
There are parts of this house that were turn of the century.
Okay.
Um,
And you took it down to the studs, basically, and redesigned the layout?
Yeah, so this part of the house is the old house, and I definitely wanted to preserve it because it had good design, and I based the rest of the house off of what was started here.
Mm-hmm.
And the house was built by a man who was partners in a boat building business, and so we have ship ribs in the ceiling, and we have sort of clear story that are reminiscent of portholes, and we have a spiral staircase upstairs and a rounded deck that's kind of like the deck of a ship. And its location is near the water. So, I had a head start on
Great.
the design. Look, we didn't even straighten up the shades. Oh, well.
Oh.